Hello everyone, welcome to Astro Psych, and today I want to talk about the INFP personality type and certain personality traits that are almost unique to this personality type compared to other types. There are certain things about the INFP that really make it one of the more unique types, and that's what I want to talk about. Let's get into it. So, as you might know, the INFP leads with dominant introverted feeling. Introverted feeling is a cognitive function that is all about inner morality, values, and authenticity. So people with a strong introverted feeling often have a strong sense of who they are as a person, and this portrays in how they act as people. They are often unwilling to kind of give ground when presenting themselves. They're not willing to pretend to be somebody else, and this is a strong factor of the introverted feeling personality types. But I think that the INFPs have a specific personality trait that makes this even more pronounced in them compared to the ISFP, which also leads with introverted feeling. So, the ISFP leads with dominant introverted feeling, and they have secondary extroverted sensing. And what this means is that they're going to have just as strong a self-sense of identity as the INFP, but they are instead going to tend to link their identity to something that is in the physical world, unlike the INFP. The ISFP is going to be the type who's going to link their identity to something that is not abstract and something that is tangible to them in the physical world. This is, for example, why you don't see ISFPs as often in things like political activist groups compared to INFPs. Because ISFPs like to have their identity linked to something tangible. They might say, I'm a musician because I play the guitar. That is my identity. They might say, I'm a metalhead because I enjoy metal music. I wear band t-shirts. This is my identity. There is a physical thing that they can link their identity to. And this is not often the case with the INFP. Because INFPs have secondary extroverted intuition, they tend to perceive things in a much more abstract sense. So they're more likely going to identify themselves with something that is also abstract, such as a political activist group or something along those lines. Because these things aren't physical in nature, you can't point to a set of moral codes and say this is a physical thing, except for in cases like religion, in which case you might see an ISFP along the lines of someone who's going to be very religious. But INFPs, on the other hand, tend to take the abstract principles of certain groups and apply them to their self and their sense of identity. And this is what's going to cause the INFP to have a strong personal sense of identity compared to all of the other types. Because their identity, their sense of self is highly abstract in nature. It's so unique to them as an individual because they are personalizing every abstract concept that they come into contact with. This is where the idea of the many shades of INFPs comes from. Because if you were to sit down, say, 10 ESTJs and ask them if they liked similar things, there's a decent probability that they're going to enjoy similar things or have somewhat similar interests. But if you sat down 10 INFPs and asked them if they liked similar things, the odds of this happening are very, very uncommon in my opinion compared to other types. Because INFPs with a strong self-sense of identity that is coming from an abstract source, they're not going to have identities that are similar to things like interests related to cognitive type because it's so personal to them. And this is why you're going to have so many variations of the INFP personality type. And this is actually why it's hard to kind of generalize the INFP personality type as a type overall, because type descriptions aren't going to fit INFPs as well as they're going to fit other types because of how highly individualistic each INFP is compared to the next INFP. Because of how strongly INFPs also tend to feel about their self-sense of identity, they're also typically the types that are going to be the first to point out when something doesn't exactly match their personality down to the T. Take, for example, the fact that I've worked with many INFPs in my personality typing service, and there's this recurring pattern that if an INFP comes to me and we have our session and we agree that they're an INFP, they're likely to email me 1 or 2 days later with one sentence out of one page from somewhere that doesn't match their personality, and they're going to say, well, I really think I'm an INFP, but I read this here and this doesn't match me as a person. Am I an INFP? Because this one specific thing doesn't exactly match their personality, they're likely to reject it because that's how strongly the INFP values their sense of identity and their sense of self compared to the other types. The INFP can also have many problems if they are undeveloped or unhealthy because of their repressed function extroverted thinking. Repressed extroverted thinking in the INFP is going to lead them to have a very hard time accepting external information if it does not align with their inner morality or value system. And what that means is that if someone proposes an idea to them, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. The INFP is going to completely ignore it if they are unhealthy if it does not align with who they are as a person and what they believe in. And this is a large problem for many INFPs, specifically because INFPs often find themselves in political arguments or situations of that nature where they're arguing for something that they strongly believe in. If they're unwilling to accept any form of external information, no matter how correct or incorrect it is, then there's not going to be any room for growth in that conversation between either party. One of the strongest points about the INFP personality type is not only is their identity formed from things that are more abstract in nature, but they also tend to present their self-sense of identity in more abstract ways. And this is why it's very common to see INFPs as artists or things of that nature, where they can express their inner sense of self in creative ways. And you might see INFPs as actors or people who are online personalities. And this is because they are going to strongly know who they are. They're not going to be afraid to be themselves 100%. And that's something that's really admirable about the INFP personality type. They know who they are and what they believe in, and they're not going to be afraid to show people that. All right, everybody, thanks for watching this video on the INFP personality type and what makes them unique compared to a lot of the other personality types. I think INFPs are extremely interesting because of how individualistic they are compared to all of the other types. You're not going to see many INFPs who are exactly like each other. They may show similarities in how they act and how they perceive the world, but who they are as a person is who they are, and they are no one else. And I really like that about the INFP personality type. I would like to remind everybody that I do have personality typing sessions available at my website, Asura Psych, if you're interested in working with me to find out your personality type. This has been Asura at Asura Psych. Have a good one.